Amina Okoye was 19 years old when her family decided she was no longer worth keeping. No shouting. No explanation. Just a suitcase placed by the door, and silence where love was supposed to be. By nightfall, she had no home, no protection, and no one who would answer her calls. By dawn, she would be someone's wife. She just didn't know yet that the man she married ruled a world built on blood, loyalty, and power. The day Amina Okoye was abandoned felt unreal, like watching her life happen to someone else. She stood outside the house she had cleaned, cooked in, sacrificed for, listening to the lock click into place. Her reflection stared back at her through the glass, calm on the outside, hollow beneath the surface. She didn't cry. Crying had never changed anything. She walked until her legs burned, until the city blurred, until the idea of staying hurt more than leaving. With barely enough money to last a day, Amina boarded the first bus out of town, not chasing a dream, but running from erasure. She told herself she was done being careful, done shrinking, done begging for space in places she was never wanted. Las Vegas greeted her with noise and light and indifference. Inside a casino bar, too bright, too loud, she met Park Jun-seo. He didn't ask why she was alone. He didn't offer pity. He didn't rush to save her. He watched her like he already knew something dangerous about her. Jun-seo was calm in a place built on chaos. His presence made the room feel quieter, heavier, powerful. When he spoke, people listened without realizing they were doing it. Amina didn't know his last name. She didn't know what he did for a living. She only knew that when he looked at her, he didn't see someone disposable. Hours passed, words spilled, walls fell, and when Jun-seo asked her a question that should have terrified her, Amina surprised herself by saying yes. 3 hours later, under neon lights and borrowed courage, she married a stranger. What Amina didn't know was that she had just stepped into a war she wasn't meant to survive. The door closed without a slam. That was the part Amina Okoye would remember later, the quiet of it. No shouting. No final argument. Just the soft, decisive click of a lock turning, like the end of a sentence she wasn't allowed to finish. She stood on the porch with her backpack digging into her shoulder, the evening air heavy and damp. Inside the house, footsteps moved away. A television turned on. Life continued. "Auntie," Amina said, her voice thin. She knocked once. Then again, harder. "Please. Let me explain." No answer. She pressed her forehead to the door, breathing in the familiar smell of polish and cooking oil that had soaked into the wood over the years. This was the house she'd scrubbed every Saturday. The house where she'd given her paychecks for groceries. The house where she'd learned how to be useful, quiet, grateful. 19 today, she reminded herself. As if the number explained everything. Her phone buzzed in her hand. One message. No name. "You're old enough now. We've done our part." That was it. No goodbye. No apology. No explanation beyond a sentence sharp enough to cut. Amina laughed under her breath. It came out wrong, too loud, too brittle. Done our part. As if love had an expiration date. As if care came with a receipt. She knocked again. Longer this time. Her knuckles stung. "I'll sleep on the couch," she said through the door. "I'll leave in the morning. I swear." Silence. The sky darkened. Somewhere down the street, a car alarm chirped and stopped. A neighbor laughed. The world didn't pause for her. When she finally picked up her backpack, it felt heavier than it should have. Inside were a few clothes, her ID, a notebook filled with lists of things she planned to become someday. She set it down and sat beside it on the step, arms wrapped around her knees. She didn't cry. Crying had always come later, in private, when it couldn't be used against her. Minutes passed. Then an hour. The porch light never came on. Amina stood. She tried her phone once, twice, 3 times, until the screen went dark. She scrolled through contacts she knew wouldn't answer. People who smiled at her in daylight but disappeared when things got heavy. When she reached the gate, she paused and looked back at the house one last time. Every window was lit. Warm. Closed. Okay, she whispered, to no one. Okay. She stepped onto the sidewalk and started walking. Each step felt like she was leaving something behind. Childhood, certainty, the version of herself that believed staying small would keep her safe. The door never opened, and Amina didn't look back again. The bus station smelled like metal, sweat, and something sour Amina couldn't name. It was still dark when she arrived, the sky bruised purple at the edges, the city half asleep and indifferent. She sat on a plastic bench and counted her money twice. Then a third time, slower, as if the numbers might change if she was careful enough. They didn't. It was barely enough for a one-way ticket anywhere that wasn't here. Anywhere would do. A digital board flickered overhead, cities sliding past in amber letters. Los Angeles. Phoenix. Las Vegas. Las Vegas caught her eye.
Bright. Loud.
Unreal. A place where people went to forget who they were supposed to be. A place that promised nothing and asked for even less. Nowhere is better than here, she thought, and surprised herself by smiling. At the counter, the clerk barely looked at her. One way. Yes, Amina said, before doubt could find its voice. She took the ticket and walked away quickly, afraid someone might stop her. Afraid she might stop herself. The bus pulled out just after sunrise. Amina took a seat by the window and pressed her forehead to the cool glass. The city slid backward, streets and buildings dissolving into a blur. She waited for the ache to hit, for regret, fear, grief, but all she felt was a hollow quiet, like a room after furniture had been dragged out. As the road stretched into desert, she made rules. Simple ones. Don't think too far ahead. Don't call anyone back. Don't look like you're waiting to be saved. Hours passed. The bus hummed.
People slept.
Someone snored. Amina watched the land flatten and fade, watched the sun climb and harden the world into sharp light. She thought about the house.
About the door.
About the way silence could be louder than shouting. Then she stopped thinking about it because thinking hurt and she was tired of hurting. Las Vegas rose out of the heat like a lie that had decided to tell itself bigger. Lights everywhere. Even in daylight, they glinted and flashed, impatient for night. The air felt electric, buzzing with voices and engines, and the promise of mistakes no one would remember. Amina stepped off the bus with her backpack slung low and her shoulders squared. She had no plan. No place to sleep. No one waiting for her. And yet, standing there, surrounded by strangers who didn't know her name or her past or what she'd been thrown away for, she felt something loosen inside her chest. For the first time in a long while, nothing expected anything from her. She walked toward the noise, toward the lights, toward the possibility of disappearing into a city that swallowed people whole. If she was going to be lost, she decided she might as well be lost somewhere bright. Nowhere was better than here. The casino bar was too bright and too loud, like it was trying to drown out thought itself. Music pulsed through hidden speakers. Glasses clinked. Laughter burst and vanished. Amina slipped onto a stool at the far end and set her backpack at her feet, one hand hooked through the strap as if it might run away without her. She ordered water. The bartender slid it over without comment, eyes already moving on. Amina wrapped her fingers around the cold glass and stared at the mirror behind the bottles, at a girl she barely recognized, tired eyes, chin lifted out of habit, a quiet defiance she didn't remember earning. That was when she felt it. Not a touch.
Not a sound.
Just the unmistakable weight of being seen. She turned. He was seated 2 stools away, posture relaxed, suit dark and immaculate, like it had never known dust or desperation. His hair was neatly cut, his face calm in a way that didn't belong here. People passed behind him, loud and careless, but nothing touched him. The space around him felt controlled, contained. When their eyes met, he didn't look away. Most men did. Or they stared too long, too obviously. This was different. He held her gaze as if he'd found something he hadn't known he was looking for. Amina's first instinct was to bristle. Her second was to leave. Instead, she took a sip of water and waited. You look like you're deciding whether to run, he said, his voice low enough to cut through the noise without competing with it. Maybe I am, Amina replied. He nodded, as if that answer satisfied him. Fair. Silence settled between them. Not awkward. Just present. You don't belong here, he said, not unkindly.
Neither do you, she shot back.
This time, a corner of his mouth lifted. Not a smile. An acknowledgement. True. He signaled the bartender without looking away from her. Whatever she wants. I didn't ask. I know. The drink appeared anyway. Something amber, expensive looking. Amina eyed it, then him. I didn't say yes. You don't have to, he said. You can leave it. She didn't. She took a small sip. It burned. She coughed, eyes watering, and he waited, didn't laugh, didn't reach for her, just waited. First time, he said. For a lot of things, she answered, surprising herself with the truth. Another pause. Then, what's your name? She hesitated. Names felt dangerous. Names meant being remembered. Amina. He repeated it quietly, like he was testing how it fit. I'm Junesio. She studied him. The calm. The way people seemed to unconsciously give him space. The way his eyes missed nothing. What do you do, Junesio? Depends who's asking. Amina let out a short breath. Figures. They talked after that. Not about jobs or plans or safe things. About endings. About starting over. About how cities could swallow you whole if you let them. She didn't mean to tell him anything real, but it happened anyway. Words slipping loose, falling into the quiet he made for them. He listened. Really listened. No pity. No fixing. When she finally stopped, the bar felt emptier than before. Junesio looked at her for a long moment. You're standing at the edge of something, he said. I can see it. And? Amina asked. And people usually look away from that. He hadn't. And somehow that changed everything. They stood across the street from the chapel, neon bleeding into the night, pink and blue lights flickering like a dare. Amina stared at the sign until the letters blurred, until it felt like the city itself was holding its breath. This is a bad idea, she said. Junesio glanced at her, unbothered. Most honest ones are. Cars rushed past. Somewhere, a siren laughed. The air smelled like heat and sugar and spilled beer. Amina pressed her palms together, then let them fall. Her hands were steady. That surprised her. We don't know each other, she said. I don't know your last name. I don't know where you live. I don't even know if this is legal. It is, he replied. Legal enough. That's not comforting. He didn't argue. He never seemed to. He just waited, like time bent around him. You said you were done being careful, he said. Done letting doors decide your future. Amina swallowed. The words landed because they were hers. She'd said them earlier, raw and unguarded, and he'd remembered. This isn't freedom, she said. This is choice, he finished. Or not. You can walk away. She looked at the chapel door. Cheap flowers taped to the glass. A bell that chimed when someone went in, bright and ridiculous. 7 minutes, she thought. 7 minutes to become someone else. Or to stay exactly who she was and keep running. What happens after? She asked. Junesio's gaze didn't waver. After is tomorrow. That was the problem. Tomorrow had always belonged to other people. Plans made without her. Decisions closed behind locked doors. She took a breath. Then another. The city hummed. The neon pulsed. Okay, she said, surprising herself with how calm it sounded. Okay. Inside, the air was cool and smelled faintly of plastic and old carpet. The officiant barely looked up from his paperwork. He smiled like this was all a joke everyone was in on. The bell chimed. Amina flinched, then laughed softly, a sound that felt borrowed. Junesio stood beside her. Close but not touching. He didn't rush her. When he took her hand, it was gentle, a question more than a claim. Last chance, he murmured. She met his eyes. They were dark and unreadable and steady. For once, she didn't feel like she was falling. She felt like she was stepping forward. I'm not running, she said. The ceremony blurred. Words she half heard, vows that sounded too big for a room this small. When she said, "I do," it felt strange and right all at once, like putting on a coat she hadn't known she needed. 7 minutes. Maybe less. The ring was cool against her skin. The kiss was brief, careful, a promise deferred rather than made. Outside, the neon flared brighter, as if congratulating them. Amina stepped into the night as a married woman, her heart racing, her future unknown. She didn't know what she'd just married into. Only that the door behind her had closed, and this time, she had chosen it. Amina woke to silence, so complete it felt expensive. The bed beneath her was too soft, the sheets cool against her skin, the ceiling unfamiliar and impossibly high. For one suspended moment, she thought she had finally disappeared, that Las Vegas had swallowed her whole and left her somewhere quiet and unreal. Then she saw the ring. It caught the light when she lifted her hand, a thin band of gold that shouldn't have been there. Memory rushed back in fragments. Neon, laughter that wasn't quite laughter, Junesio's steady gaze, 7 minutes that had split her life cleanly in two. She sat up, heart pounding. The room was enormous. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the city sprawled below, bright even in the early morning. Somewhere beyond the glass, Las Vegas kept pretending nothing mattered. The door opened without a knock. Junesio walked in fully dressed, as composed as if he'd never slept at all. He carried 2 cups of coffee. He didn't smile. "You're awake," he said. Amina pulled the sheet tighter around herself. "We need to talk." "Yes," he agreed calmly. "We do." He set 1 cup on the table within reach, then sat across from her, leaving space between them. That, more than anything, made her nervous. "What happened last night?" she asked. "And don't say it was a mistake." "It wasn't," he said. "But it wasn't simple either." Her jaw tightened. "Start explaining." Junesio studied her for a moment, as if deciding how much truth she could carry. "My family is influential," he said finally. "They expect obedience. Alliances. A marriage chosen for me."
"And you didn't want that," Amina said.
"No," his voice was flat. "But refusing has consequences." Her stomach sank. What kind of consequences? Dangerous ones. Silence stretched. The word hung between them, heavier than it should have been. "You married me to make a point," she said slowly. "I married you to end a threat." There it was. The truth, sharp and unforgiving. Amina swung her legs off the bed and stood. The carpet swallowed her bare feet. "So what am I?" she asked. "A shield? A distraction?" "A legal fact," Junesio said. "One they can't undo." She laughed, short and incredulous. "You used me." "I offered you a choice," he replied evenly. "You took it." "That was before I knew you were what exactly?" He didn't flinch. "I lead an organization," he said. "One that operates outside the law." The room felt suddenly smaller. "You're a criminal." "Yes." Her chest tightened. Fear rose, sharp and instinctive, but beneath it was something else. Anger, hot and steady. "And you thought marrying a stranger was acceptable collateral damage?" "I thought marrying someone who had nothing tying her to my world would keep her safest," he said. "Invisible. Untouchable." The words hit harder than he meant them to. Amina crossed her arms. "I'm not invisible." Junesio met her gaze. For the first time, something flickered there. Regret, maybe. "I know," he said quietly. "That's why I'm telling you now." She stared at him, this man who had looked at her when no one else did, who had offered escape and delivered power instead. Her life had twisted overnight into something sharp-edged and dangerous. "What happens next?" she asked. Junesio stood. "You stay married to me for 1 year," he said. "You'll be protected, provided for, free to build whatever future you want. And after? You walk away with enough money to never be thrown out of anywhere again." Amina looked at the city below, at the lights that never slept. She had escaped one locked door only to step into another. The difference was this one came with guards. And consequences. And for the first time since the porch, Amina wasn't sure if she wanted to run. Amina didn't answer him right away. She walked to the window instead, barefoot on the cool floor, arms wrapped around herself. From this height, the city looked harmless. Beautiful, even. Distance had a way of softening sharp things. 1 year, she said finally. That's what you're asking for. Jun Seo nodded. That's what I'm offering. She turned back to him. Then we need rules. Something in his expression shifted. Not irritation, not surprise. Interest. I'm listening, he said. I won't be a decoration, Amina began, her voice steady despite the pulse in her throat. I won't smile on command or sit quietly while men decide things over my head. If I'm your wife, even on paper, I'm not invisible and I'm not disposable. Agreed, Jun Seo said without hesitation. That caught her off guard. She narrowed her eyes. I'm not finished. I assumed you weren't. She took a breath. I won't be involved in anything illegal. I don't want to know details I can't unknow. If danger comes to me because of your world, I need to understand the rules of surviving it. You will, he said. I'll make sure of it. I want access, she continued. To money. Real access. Not an allowance. I won't ask permission to eat or move or exist. Jun Seo nodded again, slow and deliberate. Done. And privacy, Amina added. My body. My space. My choices. This marriage doesn't give you ownership of me. For the first time, Jun Seo smiled, just slightly. I've never wanted ownership, he said. Only stability. She studied him, searching for the trick. Found none. There's one more thing, she said. Yes. My family, Amina said quietly. They don't get to be punished for throwing me away. I don't want blood on my hands because of resentment. Jun Seo was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. They will be left alone, he said. They'll never know you're protected. Good. The tension in her chest eased a fraction. She hadn't realized how tightly she'd been holding herself until that moment. Jun Seo stepped back, giving her space. In return, he said, you'll follow security protocols. You'll accept protection even when it feels unnecessary. And you won't disappear without telling me. Amina met his gaze. I don't run without reason. I know, he said. And somehow she believed him. Later, when she followed him through the apartment, past quiet hallways, guarded doors, men who nodded without speaking, she felt the weight of it settle in. This wasn't luxury. It was a fortress. At one doorway, Jun Seo paused. This is your room, he said. It locks from the inside. No one enters without your permission. Amina stepped inside. The room was large, simple, calm. A place that could be hers, if she let it. Thank you, she said, surprised to mean it. Jun Seo inclined his head. Rest, he said. Tomorrow, you start learning how to stay alive in my world. When the door closed behind him, Amina sat on the edge of the bed and let out a slow breath. She hadn't been rescued. She had negotiated. And that made all the difference. It happened on a Tuesday. Amina would remember that later, too, the ordinariness of it. The way danger didn't announce itself with thunder or warning music. It just stepped out of the shadows and decided. She had finished a language lesson and was walking toward the car, her phone tucked under her arm, mind half on the new words she was trying to memorize. The courtyard was quiet, sun bright overhead, security posted at a distance the way Jun Seo insisted on. Safe. Controlled. Too controlled. The van rolled in without urgency, dark windows. Engine low. At first, Amina didn't register it as wrong. Then the door slid open. Men moved fast. Someone grabbed her arm. Hard. The shock stole her breath before fear could find its voice. No, she started, but the word broke apart as another hand clamped over her mouth. The world tilted. Her phone hit the ground and skidded away. Amina kicked, instinct sharp and furious. She felt a knee connect with something solid. A grunt. A curse in a language she didn't know. It wasn't enough. A hood dropped over her head. Darkness swallowed everything. They moved her quickly, lifted, shoved, restrained. The van door slammed. The engine surged. Her heart pounded so loud, she thought it might give her away, as if fear itself could be overheard. Junessio, she thought, not as a plea, but as a fact. He would notice. He would know. The van stopped. Hands hauled her out. The hood came off. They were in a warehouse, empty except for shadows and the echo of footsteps. A single chair stood under a hanging light. She was pushed into it, wrists bound tight behind her back. A man stepped forward. He smiled like this was long overdue. "So," he said calmly, circling her. "You're the wife." Amina lifted her chin. Her mouth was dry, but her voice didn't shake. "And you're the one who made a mistake." The smile widened. "Brave. I like that." He leaned in close enough that she could smell his cologne. Expensive, sharp. "You're his weakness," he said softly. "Did you know that? The moment he started caring, you became leverage." "I don't know anything," Amina said. "If you're here for information, you picked the wrong person." "We'll see." He straightened and nodded once. Pain exploded across her cheek as someone struck her from the side. Stars burst behind her eyes. She tasted blood. Amina swallowed and forced herself to breathe. "Last chance," the man said. "Tell me how deep his operations go." She looked up at him through the haze and smiled, slow, defiant. "You really don't understand him," she said. "Or me." The man's expression hardened. "Then you're less useful than I hoped." He turned away. Amina closed her eyes and braced herself. Somewhere beyond the walls, something thundered, too loud to be coincidence. Gunfire. Shouts. Chaos. The building shook. And in the roar of it all, Amina knew one thing with terrifying clarity. They hadn't taken her because she was weak. They had taken her because she mattered. The explosion came from the far wall, concrete shuddering as if the building itself had flinched. Shouts erupted. Footsteps scrambled. The man in front of Amina spun, swearing under his breath. For a heartbeat, no one moved, caught between disbelief and instinct. Then everything fractured. Gunfire tore through the air. Lights burst. Dust rained down. Someone screamed. Amina didn't close her eyes. She forced herself to stay present, to feel the chair beneath her, the bite of the rope at her wrists. Fear threatened to drown her, but beneath it was something harder, steadier. Resolve. The man lunged back toward her, grabbing her hair and yanking her head up. His face was twisted now, the calm gone. "This ends one way," he snarled. "You talk or you die here." Amina met his gaze. For a moment, she saw the calculation in his eyes, how much she was worth, how fast he needed an answer. She thought of the door that never opened, of the bus ride into nowhere, of Junessio's quiet voice when he'd said she wasn't invisible. "I won't betray him," she said. Another blow came, harder this time. Pain flared white-hot, but she didn't cry out. She refused him that. "You think he'd do the same for you?" the man hissed. "You were convenient. A shield. Nothing more." Amina tasted blood and smiled anyway. "You're wrong," she said. "And that's why you're losing." The door at the far end of the warehouse blew inward. Smoke poured in, thick and choking. Shapes moved through it with brutal precision. Men dropped. Weapons clattered to the floor. The man holding her stumbled back, reaching for his gun. He never fired it. Junesio emerged from the smoke like the storm had parted for him alone. His suit was dark, untouched by dust. His face was cold, carved from focus and fury. He didn't hesitate, didn't shout. He moved with terrifying calm. The man fell. Silence followed, ragged, stunned. Junesio crossed the space between them in seconds. He knelt in front of Amina, hands steady as he cut the ropes binding her wrists. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice low, controlled. She nodded once. "I'm okay." His eyes searched her face, her hands, every inch he could see. Something cracked there, just enough to let fear slip through. "They wanted information," he said. "I didn't give them anything." Junesio closed his eyes briefly, like the weight of that truth had landed somewhere deep. When he opened them, his voice was quieter. "You could have saved yourself." Amina held his gaze. At the cost of becoming someone I can't live with?
No.
Behind them, his men waited, weapons lowered, watching. Junessio stood and offered his hand. Amina took it. As he helped her to her feet, she understood what she'd chosen. Not safety, not escape, but loyalty freely given. And nothing would ever be the same again. The room was quiet except for the steady rhythm of the monitors. Amina lay propped against white pillows, a thin bruise blooming along her cheek, bandages wrapped neatly around her wrists. The doctors had come and gone, murmuring reassurances, clearing her for rest. None of it felt real yet. Junessio sat beside the bed. Not standing guard. Not pacing. Just sitting, elbows on his knees, hands clasped like he was afraid to let go of something invisible. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Finally, Amina broke the silence. They kept saying, "I was your weakness." Junessio's jaw tightened. They were wrong. They weren't, she said gently. Not entirely. He looked up at her then, really looked at her, eyes dark with something raw and unguarded. "I never meant for you to be dragged into that," he said. "This was supposed to be clean, controlled, temporary." Amina studied his face, the cracks in the armor, the exhaustion he never let anyone see. "Temporary doesn't feel honest anymore," she said. He exhaled slowly. "The contract ends in 3 months. I know. If you want to leave," Junessio continued, voice careful, "you can. I'll make sure you disappear safely. New name, new life. No one will ever touch you again." Amina let the words settle. 3 months ago, she would have taken that offer without hesitation. Freedom had meant distance. Survival had meant leaving first. She swung her legs over the side of the bed and stood, ignoring the faint protest in her body. "And what do you want?" she asked. Junessio didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was stripped of strategy. "I want you to stay," he said. "Not because I need protection. Not because it's useful. But because I choose you." Amina felt something steady itself in her chest. She reached into the drawer beside the bed and pulled out a folded document, the contract. She held it between them. "This," she said, "was never about love." "No," he agreed. "It wasn't." She tore it cleanly down the middle. Then again, until it was nothing but useless paper in her hands. She dropped the pieces into the trash. Junessio stood, stunned. "I'm not staying because I'm trapped," Amina said. "I'm staying because I want to. Because when I was afraid, you came for me. And when I had the chance to save myself by becoming someone smaller, I didn't." She looked at him, eyes clear. "This only works if we're equals. No contracts. No leverage. Just choice." Junessio crossed the space between them and took her hands carefully, like she might still vanish. "Then choose me," he said. Amina smiled, soft, real. "I already have." He pulled her into his arms, slow and deliberate, as if sealing something fragile and permanent all at once. Outside, the city moved on, loud and indifferent. Inside, 2 people stood without armor. Not bound by necessity, only by choice.